Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Hash. We are wrapping up another week of bringing you the latest and greatest in crypto and culture. My name is Naomi Brockwell. We have on the show also Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, Danny Nelson, and Will Foxley. Welcome to the show, guys. And to kick off the day, we're gonna have to talk about this Elon Musk Doge story some more. What has happened since the last time we dove into this yesterday? It's escalated. All right, Danny, I'm handing this off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Elon is not giving up the reins on crypto just yet. Last night, he tweeted that he's working with Doge devs to improve the transaction efficiency, and it's potentially promising. Now, you got to remember, on Wednesday, Elon Musk pulled support for Bitcoin payments for Tesla cars because he said it's just an inefficient network that uses too much fossil fuels and burns coal. And so that's something he's got to move away from. And he also said they're looking toward possibly using cryptocurrencies that are more efficient at transactions. So if you look at this tweet coming right after that, you can see that maybe he's thinking maybe there's a future in which we'll be accepting DOGECOIN for Tesla. So I think that this is a promising development for Doge, and Doge investors seem to have thought the same. The coin was up 22% after the news. So, this tweet from Elon, I think he must have been watching yesterday's Hash show, because I had said that this was probably the it for Doge's moment, and he has proven me wrong. So, Will, what do you think of all this?
Well, obviously, he is going to develop a Lightning network on top of Dogecoin. We know that Doge and Bitcoin share a lot of similar technical aspects. So I think, Lightning is coming to Bitcoin or coming to Dogecoin. I want to hear Naomi's take on this. She's been ranting for weeks about the technical aspects of Doge.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Elon's talking about all the energy used, and then he's like, yeah, but Dogecoin is great, which is less efficient. So it all seems like the big Bitcoin news yesterday was just a PR splash about Tesla's new business venture, which is going into renewable energy credits. And now he's exploring Dogecoin, which seems to get him a lot of PR as well. I don't know, Ben, you're like a big ranter on this topic. I'm throwing to you.
I hate it.
Tell us how you really feel.
I know. So I just want to call attention to a tweet from Jackson Palmer, who is the founder of Dogecoin. And so he tweeted something out really briefly and then deleted it soon after. But the tweet said, reminder, Elon Musk is and always will be a self-absorbed grifter. And I'm feeling particularly uncharitable towards Elon today because, on the one hand, sure, like you can pull Bitcoin. We talked about the energy stuff. Like we don't need to kind of rehash that aspect, but also like nobody was buying your Teslas in Bitcoin, which might have been a bigger reason that you were going to hold on to it and not sell it while also just rolling back support for it. But then he goes and tweets out something that has, kind of little to no context. There's no indication of what developers he's working with. There's no indication of what actually is being done. And I don't even know what talking to means. I guess you're like in some dude's DMs. So I'm kind of over this. I don't think that it should have moved the markets as much as it did. I think the fact that it did shows just how problematic Dogecoin is and how untethered from reality it might be. But that's a short one. And Naomi, I will toss it back to you.
Sure. I'm glad that you just were honest with us. You usually hold back your opinions so much. So it's good to hear you really being so honest about this. I think that I'm going to stand up for Elon. I love Elon. I think he's one of the most important entrepreneurs of our day. I am disappointed in how he's responded to Bitcoin, but it doesn't take away my respect for everything else that he's done. And I'm not a huge fan of Jackson Palmer. So, it's like, important people tweeting things, and then we tend to pick sides and we're all tribal. I mean, when it comes down to it, maybe Elon will improve Dogecoin. Maybe he's going to get a bunch of developers on it. Maybe he is going to create the next peer-to-peer cash that could be used to buy, Teslas with. I don't know. He's been incredibly successful with his other ventures. So maybe there's something to that. But I'm not going to hold my breath. And there are a lot of other really great coins out there. I'm interested that he chose Doge.
Yeah, for me, it's like, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
it was a question for you, so you can take it away after.
Okay.
Ben, what is it going to take for you to believe in Doge, if not Elon's backing? I ask this every show, and it just feels
that
we're getting
not trust it even more.
To
almost.
It being more serious.
Like
You're
Doge is going to continue.
Get the man some love.
Doge is going to continue to be around. Absolutely, it's not going away. You know, Danny, like we've all talked about where the death of Doge is, and it's obviously not dying. I think my frustrations here is like I kind of take the wait and see approach. Like I get frustrated when we talk about an Elon tweet or like almost anybody just tweeting something, because we've seen how quickly he sort of pivots from one thing to another and might reverse his stance, or maybe the SEC Twitter, babysitter gets involved in these sorts of things. And so like my thing is like, let's just take a beat. If this actually happens, cool. I'll be happy to talk about it then. But I would rather, talk about him doing something rather than tweeting something.
How awesome
was that
shout out
the control room for that video?
Yeah, I know. I love that so much. The dogs like chasing the rocket.
Just like, it was very cool.
Danny, what you got?
One thing that will be happening pretty soon is in 6 to 8 weeks, Coinbase will be adding Doge for trading. Now, Coinbase is a little bit slow on the uptake on this one, but here it is. Finally, Coinbase, a major U.S. exchange, is going to be allowing people to buy and sell Doge. So I think that probably contributed to yesterday's price spike as well.
Oh, for sure.
But who knows? Maybe we're heading toward a world where we can buy our Doge on Coinbase and then quickly go right over to Tesla and get a car.
See, and this is something happening. So I'm interested in this.
I am excited about a world, like if he can pull it off, if he can make Dogecoin like a really cool coin that people enjoy using and they're not intimidated by us the same way that they are with other cryptocurrencies, and if they can get the tech better, I'm open-minded. It's not there. That's why I'm not promoting it to people and I'm not hyping it. But if he can get there, I mean, great. This is an alternative to be at. You don't have to be into a system where they're hyperinflating away your money with every day that passes. You can use something else. They would have to do a lot of work to Dogecoin to change that. It's an infinitely inflatable currency as well. So there's a lot of groundwork to be done. I hope that Elon understands that. In the past, he hasn't actually really been that bullish on even Bitcoin. It's Tesla that has been, and Elon's always kind of distanced himself from, well, I believe this, but Tesla's doing their own thing. But so we'll have to wait and see, as you said, Ben. But what have we got next? Well, got some less entertaining, less fun things.
Less entertaining, but probably still as controversial. That is for sure. So the IRS has brought in more than $20 million from crypto enforcement, according to Bloomberg Law. So recently, 2019, I believe, the IRS sent out some letters to a lot of people thinking that they might have crypto and said, hey, you got to pay up. And that letter seemed to have worked, with about $13 million was turned in with new assessments after the fact following the sending of those letters. And then another $7 million was also brought forward by different enforcement actions for taxes. So this comes after the IRS has tapped TaxBit to become their audit partner for at least the next calendar year. And then also some recent news around the IRS asking Kraken to divulge information about traders who have spent over $20,000 on that platform. So we're seeing a lot of different enforcement actions from the IRS in the midst of this crypto boom, which is quite different from previous bear market cycles where we didn't see a lot of action coming out of the IRS at all. And most traders and people in crypto want the IRS to kind of be upfront about what they desire for people, because the rules right now are extremely opaque. And now we're seeing with this bull market some enforcement coming forward, which is pretty uncomfortable, obviously, for people who have not set aside some of those gains for taxes. So I'm going to give it right over to Naomi for your take.
Where do I start? Well, where do I start? The IRS is sending out these blanket summons to people, and we've talked about, that blanket summon to Kraken and to Circle and Poloniex, just saying, we want all records. It's nothing to do with terrorism. It's nothing to do with national security. It's just a money grab. And for that, we're going to invade everyone's privacy. So yeah, who cares if it was successful and they got $20 million? They're still completely invading people's right to financial privacy by putting out these summons, and it's terrible that these judges have approved them. So very much not in favor of that. And also, going to take a step back, just say one sentence. I'll just really short rant, really short. Then I'll throw it to you, Ben, about taxes, because a lot of people are like, well, it's ethical and you can pay for social goods and public services and all this. That's why it's good. It's like the vast majority of your taxes, people, is going to fund occupations and wars. And I'm sorry, I cannot support an ethical argument for taxes. So that's just what I'm going to say there. But Ben, I'll throw it to you.
I mean, Naomi, I'm generally on the side of, we need to look more closely at taxes because they do have a host of social goods. The military industrial complex is not one I'm going to get behind, though. I'd be very, very happy if the DoD would shift some of its tax burden onto social services so there's an actual safety net in the US, which there is not right now. That being said, this reporting in this story sort of makes me eat some of my words a little bit. I've reported on people pushing back against those 2019 sort of educational letters, I think is what the IRS was kind of telling them. And I've been covering various court cases that have come out of it around kind of Fourth Amendment rights and a right to privacy. And the IRS shouldn't be able to get all of these, kind of records from places like Coinbase and others just because people are transacting in a high quantity of crypto. That being said, if they're pulling in $13 million in additional dollars in taxes as a result of this, I think that is really interesting in some ways. I think it does show that maybe there was a lack of understanding or lack of payments in that regard. So I have to walk back some of my criticisms in regards to it. The larger question still stands. And I think this also points to the fact that the IRS has been pretty opaque in terms of, what taxes look like with crypto, and the US generally from a regulatory perspective, it's really, really, really confusing. So I don't want to put any sort of nefarious intent on any of these individuals, but I think it shows that, maybe in fact these letters did accomplish what the IRS intended. But Danny, I'll toss this one up to you.
Just quickly, Ben, don't walk back your stance on privacy. Mass surveillance is always bad. It doesn't matter if you get a drop in the bucket, a few million compared to the 4 million, $4 trillion they're printing these days. It doesn't matter because the principle of privacy and financial privacy is so important, and the mass overreach of mass surveillance is just so egregious. I just don't think we should compromise on that.
Sure. No, I think the larger point still stands, right? They shouldn't, I said this, going after people just for transacting in high amounts of crypto. That being said, this does show that there was some tax implications that were not being fully kind of netted out for the individuals holding this. So, the larger idea still stands. I think overall, this is a Fourth Amendment issue that we need to be talking about and should be challenged in court. And I believe the people behind that court case are actually appealing a decision right now. So this is still working its way through. But, there were taxes that were unpaid here seemingly. And so for that, I have to say, okay, maybe you educated people and that was the intent of these letters and that way it was effective. But Naomi, I agree. Overall, this is not something I'm going to be walking back. This is just sort of another twist in this ongoing privacy tale we will be spinning.
I'm going to just, Naomi, ask you a question quickly. And then I know Danny has something to say. Are you against taxes? And for newcomers to the space, what do they need to know about crypto taxes?
I think that we actually have to wrap up here. But yes, I am against taxes because, as I said, I cannot ethically support something where the vast majority of your money is going towards the military-industrial complex. It doesn't matter if, they shoot your mother but then hand you a lollipop. Sure, you get the lollipop. That's probably a good thing. But they also shot your mother. Right? It doesn't matter, at the end of the day to me.
And crypto taxes would take a whole 30-minute episode. They are complicated as well.
I know. We'll have to do that one day. But for now, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about supermodels and NFTs. It's a divergence from the whole world of NFTs and the sport world that we've been talking about. So what do supermodels have to do with NFTs? You will find out after the break. Hi everyone, welcome back to The Hash, where we bring you the latest and greatest in crypto and culture. And we're going to start off this segment by talking about the Bank of England. It is apparently probable that the Bank of England will launch a digital currency. They're dubbing it BRITCOIN, which is kind of fun. Not as fun as the fact that they're just putting out another government fiat, a CBDC. So in a speech on Thursday, Sir John Cunliffe, who's the Deputy Governor for Financial Stability, says it's probable that the state would need to issue some form of digital cash to retain citizens' confidence in the availability of public money, which is a very interesting way to couch this. He said some other things which I think we can dive into, but I'll throw this straight to the group. Will, what are your thoughts on all of these CBDCs being released and announced and the UK jumping on board?
Yeah, say that 10 times fast, right? CBDC.
Yeah, no.
No, don't do it. We've gone over the topic a few times on the show, and like my stance always is just CBDCs kind of leverage an existing technology which is better suited for a decentralized network like Bitcoin, and it's trying to put it in the hands of government for its own interests and purposes. And to a degree, I think there could be a world where Bitcoin and CBDCs actually kind of coexist well. It just depends on how these things are created and architectured in the beginning. I think that CBDCs could actually kind of end up providing a lot more liquidity to Bitcoin because people are going to be naturally onboarded into the crypto space. They're going to have to learn how to use a crypto wallet. They're going to have to be familiar with like putting your private key away and what your looks like and how to interact with addresses and whatnot. And that necessarily brings people into Bitcoin. And if you just like look at one side of the chart and the other side, Bitcoin, CBDCs, it's very clear which one has more beneficial properties. The only difference everyone gets caught up on is that Bitcoin's price is very volatile and CBDCs are pegged to whatever the currency rate is. So £1 sterling or whatnot, or $1. And I think over time, as we see Bitcoin increase in price, and then I think it's going to level out in the future, that argument starts to dissipate. And then we just kind of get into this world where we have Bitcoin, we have CBDCs, we have Ether, we have DAI, we have all these different kind of coins that you can interact with as assets. So I'm not super surprised. I think it's going to be a while. I think that I would be interested to get Ben's take on the privacy aspects here. Of course, there's been a lot of reporting on the subject, but it's never quite clear what these central banks are actually emphasizing at a given time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I actually want to call attention to a new column from our new Chief Insights columnist, David Morris, who wrote about the Colonial Pipeline hack in the sense of CBDCs sort of being the money pipeline and what are the vulnerabilities there. Like, you know, I've mentioned previously that like zero knowledge proofs are in discussions with some of these CBDCs. We've seen some thinking about incorporating, you know, distributed ledger technology, DLT for short, and other maybe private blockchains and stuff like that. That being said, like, you know, David kind of focused on the fact that, you know, the ransomware hackers of the Colonial Pipeline in the US were just kind of focused on money. They even put out a press statement to the effect like, we're just here for the money. We are not like a geopolitical force or anything like that. And I think, you know, it kind of raised some issues around like CBDCs as well and the vulnerabilities that might exist there. If you're interested in money, you know, kind of going after a CBDC might be another appealing option for a various hacker, you know, whichever hacker group may come next in this regard. And so that just kind of, to me, brought up a kind of whole other host of concerns. Like privacy is obviously an important one. We've talked about the ways the US is saying they may focus on privacy while China is maybe doing less so of that. But I think overall, like how they're incorporating security into these things is going to be another huge question, right? Like we've talked about sort of cash being used for crime a lot, maybe the most popularly transacted criminal sort of enterprise in that regard. But I'm curious about what security measures might be involved. And I think countries are going to be thinking about this, but I think also governments have shown that it's quite tricky to actually keep things secure through a variety of hacks and stuff that we've seen between SolarWinds, Colonial Pipelines, all these other things. So Jen, I want to toss that to you, but that was top of mind today when I read this story.
I think this is probably a pretty basic question, but Naomi, I just have to ask you, if people are losing trust in let's say the British pound, how is the CBDC going to instill that trust if it's just the same thing but digital?
That is such a good question. So Sir Cunliffe actually went on to say that these private stablecoins that have been launched, they tend to have greater functionality, lower transaction costs than current commercial bank digital money offerings, and could quickly attract a large number of users. So there's this interesting, fight brewing between private money and public money. Perhaps if cryptocurrency can bring down a transaction cost, it might help them compete. But currently they're really recognizing that the private sector has come out with better products. So good luck to them. I'm not sure how I'm going to hold my breath though. But let's change track here. Ben, what have we got next?
Sure. Kind of in keeping with our ideas about privacy more generally, I wrote a quick kind of small story yesterday about Monero, which is one of the most popularly transacted privacy coins in the world. So the idea behind a privacy coin generally, and we've talked about this in relation to CBDCs, in relation to Bitcoin, is that those things aren't really private. Like you can kind of trace these things. We talked about blockchain analytics firms that do that sort of tracing. But the idea of Monero and other privacy coins is generally that you can't see who's sending the money, you can't see who's receiving the money, and you can't see the amount being sent. So there's a lot of controversy around privacy coins sometimes because people like to think and generally think maybe that they're used for illicit activities like the dark net, all these other sort of scary things that people don't associate with. And, according to updated numbers from a online crypto directory called CryptWork, where vendors and merchants can kind of list like what coins they're accepting, they can get payment portals, they can do other things, it shows a different side of privacy coins generally. So between 2018 and today, they saw vendors that were accepting Monero increase from about 41 in 2018 to almost 1,000 today. And these are vendors that are doing things like, that are quite innocuous in a lot of ways. They're selling clothes, they're selling Nepali jewelry, they're selling like beef jerky and these other things. And so I thought it was interesting to look at this continued adoption of privacy coins, particularly when they're under scrutiny, but for things that aren't like, for example, selling drugs, which is maybe how people think about this generally. So Jen, I want to toss this down to you in terms of your thoughts here and how a general audience might be thinking about privacy coins and what this adoption by merchants could mean.
I'm actually really surprised that the adoption has grown at such a rate. I'm always saying that people are just going to choose the easier way out. And I think every day on this show, I'm proved wrong. And I think it shows a lack of trust. We talk about that all the time. People really want to protect their data. There's a conversation going on around that in a lot of different kind of parallels. So I think it's good. I think people are listening and paying attention and looking for different applications that can help them protect themselves. But I want to throw this off to Danny because I stole your thunder in one of the last segments and we didn't get to hear from you.
Oh, well, I mean, it's related to absolutely nothing at this point, but, it just keeps, I can't get out of my head that the British, just to turn it back for a second, are very uncreative. First there was Grexit, then there was Brexit. First there was Bitcoin, and now there's BRITCOIN. So that's like stuck in my head. And therefore everything else, including Monero, is falling by the wayside because of it.
Danny, what do you think the chances are of a central bank having like a private currency like Monero? Like what are the chances of a central bank implementing like privacy?
It's funny you should ask because the ECB, which is currently thinking about issuing a digital euro, part of their thoughts around the anonymity side of things is maybe giving people like $1,000. Well, not giving people $1,000, but allowing people to transact maybe $1,000 a month or a year in a completely anonymous version of the digital euro, basically saying you have X amount of money to spend.
Wow, they're going to cap it. You can only be private $1,000 of the time.
Exactly.
You can only close your bathroom door a little bit because, we don't know what you're going to be doing in the bathrooms. We just need to monitor it a little bit, but just keep it mainly closed, but just keep it open a crack.
Yeah, if you're going to do something illegal, only...
Well, I saw
I'd say it's not out of the question.
Right? Yeah, China is experimenting with the digital yuan, and they talked about being able to delete your money if you don't spend it within a certain time frame, like 90 to 180 days, which is even more frightening. The EU situation is not great, but there's obviously like scales to how like terrible this can get, where they're actually just deleting money out of your wallet because you didn't spend it fast enough. Which kind of goes back to
Danny, you derailed us. Let's get back to Monero. So Monero being this most popular currency, but maybe we got to wrap there. So maybe, listen, we're more interested in CBDCs, but I think private money is fantastic and fantastic news from you, Ben, to hear that is increasing. But let's go on to our next story. I've lost my mouse here. Sorry, Jen, you can walk me through this next one because I'm so confused.
Yeah, so we're going from Monero to supermodels. So Emily Ratajkowski and CARA DELEVIGNE want to take back ownership of their bodies, and they want to do so using NFTs. So Emily said in a series of tweets that she wants to reclaim power over her image. She said the digital terrain should be a place where women can share their likeness as they choose, controlling the usage of their image and receiving the capital attached. She also spoke about how images of women's body are often shared without their consent for profit online. So there she is. She also has laser eyes. She seems to be embracing the whole crypto sphere. It's interesting that she's talking about taking ownership back over your image when in my head, when I first read this story, I thought, well, she's a model. She was paid for many of the images that are out there. She obviously would have negotiated deals and been okay with those deals at the time. But I know, Ben, you have a really interesting take on this. So I'm going to pass it off to you first. What did you think when you read these stories?
So Ratajkowski has been writing about this sort of issue since like late last year. She published a series of essays on the subject and kind of about like her image and ownership and things like this. And so to me, this seems like a little bit of a natural progression for that. But I do think it's interesting. Like in an essay, I believe in The Cut last year, she was talking about how, you know, the sort of Instagram photo behind her was like sold as an $80,000 painting that her boyfriend was trying to buy. And it's of her likeness on Instagram. And I think it just kind of speaks to like, we're all trying, and particularly people that are public, you know, personas online, and particularly ones where their images are used all over the place, like try and regain some element of control. You know, like the web is this extensive digital place where like things get co-opted and repurposed. We've talked about like Elon's meme stealing previously. And there's like the idea of something being actually yours is getting less and less sort of like clear. And NFTs are like an attempt to get back to that. Like we've talked about sort of their permanence in a permanently impermanent digital world, and that maybe being appealing. But to me, this kind of goes to a bigger issue of people just like grasping at what their identity is and how to maintain that online in a way that doesn't just get co-opted for all other sorts of things. You know, I've reported on things like non-consensual pornography previously, and I've reported on like DMC or DCMA requests, like content takedown requests, and how like things that live on the internet never really die. For example, people who have dealt with NCP like have had their images taken down and then they pop up, 10 years later just because people download these things and re-upload them. And so I just think that this is part of a larger conversation of like trying to maintain ownership and agency. And therefore I'm kind of interested in it. Like, I don't know if NFTs are the answer, but it speaks to like a more fundamental crisis, I think, that is going on as more and more of our lives move online. But that's sort of my top level takeaways from this one.
Yeah, I'll jump in and give some thoughts. I mean, when you're talking about this idea of a painting being created about her, and so, this was bad for her, it's like, well, she could also do a painting of her likeness as well, but she didn't. Someone else did. Some other artist took the time to do all of the work, and they just happened to, based on her image. So it's like, I mean, the internet, as you said, is open, but that means that it's open to her as well, so she can take advantage of it. So it's cool that now she is, and she's doing this NFT, and she's saying, well, this is me monetizing my image even more, because that's what she does in her career. She monetizes her image for a living. I kind of, again, I think a lot of people like to throw in some virtue signaling buzzwords about like reclaiming image and power to women and all. Like, I don't buy it, but kudos to her for getting in on this and making some money off it. I think that side of it's cool. I just don't like it when they wrap it up in some pretty bow and pretend it's something that it's not.
Will, I saw your hand go up.
One thing I'll note is, yeah, she's mixing crypto cultures here, which is just not okay. So she's got the laser eyes. But she's launching an NFT, and that's just like, so she just like stepped in here and messed it up immediately. So like, hopefully she kind of figures out what's going on. But there's definitely like, there's two different teams here. It's Team Laser Eyes versus Team NFTs, and she can't just be in the middle there. That's the only thing.
Will has decided.
Let her know. Just Will, tweet her and let her know.
Noted meme critic.
Tweet at her.
But
just
Jen,
do it right. Do it right.
What's this CARA DELEVIGNE thing? Please tell me more about it, because I read some naughty words in there.
Yeah, so CARA DELEVIGNE is selling a video clip about her vagina as an NFT. So in the clip, she says that her vagina is her own and that she can do what she wants with it. The artwork is called Mine, and it's going for auction on a platform called This Is Number One. So on that platform, NFTs can be minted using Bitcoin, I believe. So that's kind of a different thing that we're seeing here. what's notable about this is the proceeds from this particular auction is going to the CARA DELEVIGNE Foundation, which supports vulnerable women. So we've spoken about, proceeds from these NFT auctions going to charitable causes. So that's really great. The message is very similar to that of Emily's. She's reclaiming her body after she's kind of had a long career of I don't want to say selling it, but using her image to make money in different forms. So I don't know, Ben, I'm throwing this right back to you because we spoke about it before the show. What do you think of this new way of minting NFTs?
I mean, I think this is curious, right? I believe this is the first kind of time that NFTs are being minted on the Bitcoin blockchain via Stacks is the tech that's kind of behind this. So that's curious. I'm interested to see what the demand is for this in that regard. I'm a little unclear about how that particularly differentiates from Ethereum and NFTs on that platform. That being said, this again just kind of gets at this issue about like control, right? And today, at least, I'm kind of caught up in this idea around like ownership and about people trying to claw back agency online. And that's kind of what this feels like. We talked previously about people whose images have been used in memes, like the Disaster Girl one that was featured, and kind of monetizing that after it goes widely available online, gets used for whatever. And that's just something I think is going to be curious. Again, I don't necessarily think NFTs are the answer, but I think it speaks to a more existential question about like, can we really take anything back once it's out there in the digital world? And how much of ourselves are we like going to have to give? And I think that fits into like my kind of ethos of thinking about like privacy and data control, right? This is like a multifaceted thing. And so like when your sort of business is your image, like how does that fit into conversations around power, privacy, control, monetization, and who is using these things? So these are the things I'm thinking about rather than the nitty gritty. But again, I think this is like a larger issue we're going to keep discussing. But Jen, I want to toss back to you.
Oh, actually, we got to wrap this. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we'll sing our goodbyes. Cara's super fun. I like her. She's like all in for the shock value, so it's not surprising she's doing this. But that is all from us on the hash today. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's been a delight being here with all of you. And just stick around because at 3 p.m. we have All About Bitcoin with Christine Lee. So hang around for that. And in the meantime, go and enjoy your day. Enjoy Friday. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
All right. Have a good weekend, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.